baby. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers UnCovered podcast, your home for all Steelers-related news here at the Undroppables Network. Tonight, flying solo, your host, Marcus Galie, my lovely, beautiful man of a co-host, Beezy. He's unable to make it tonight. Life gets in the way. We've both been really busy. I know we haven't put out a show in a while. We've been texting back and forth, trying to find a date that worked with both of us. Unfortunately, just where we both are right now in our stages of life, it's been hard to coordinate. So we're going to miss him for sure. Shout out Beezy. Love talking to him. Love doing Steelers content with him. He'll be back, though. Don't worry. I'm just going to hold it down tonight by myself. But Beezy, I'm sure you'll listen. We'll miss you, my man. And let me know things I can work on for next time when we get back together. But wow. We took a long layoff here. It's been about a month since our last show. And a ton has happened. The draft, obviously, is the big one. This episode is going to focus a lot on recapping the draft picks, kind of how the board shook out, how the fits for each draft selection, how I think they're going to fit with the team, some good things, maybe some negative things, but just an absolute crazy draft. I think they smashed it. I think a lot of the fan base also agrees. Everything I've been seeing on social media, it seems that the Steelers went the route that most of the fans wanted them to, which is heavy offensive line. So we'll get into that. We'll go round by round and kind of talk a little bit about each selection. We'll also talk about a little bit of the Najee Harris news. Just a few days ago, they declined his fifth-year option. So we'll get into that as well before we talk some draft stuff. But before I get into any of that, real quick, I just want to let you guys know a little bit about our lovely sponsor, Underdog. It's the easiest way to play fantasy football. Right now they've been drafting, honestly, all year up to this point. But now with the NFL draft having just taken place, we know all of those ADPs are going to change, especially with the rookies. So looking at quarterbacks, Caleb Williams off the board to Chicago. They did a lot to bolster him in terms of weapons, bringing in Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. So pretty good landing spots there. Drake May falls to pick number 3, selected by New England Patriots. He doesn't have as much help as Caleb Williams. So, where's that going to land him? Receiver-wise, McConkey goes to the Chargers, who have a lot of vacant targets, but they're going to be in a run-heavy scheme. So how do you like that fit? Some crazy draft capital, too, with Xavier Legette and Ricky Pearsall going in the first round. So it's really going to be crazy to see where these guys end up. Best ball, it's the best way to play. It's super fun, super entertaining. Only $10 to enter. And here's the best part, if you use code UNDROPPABLES, that's capital UNDROPPABLE, you'll get your first deposit match up to $200. So I think I said that wrong. It's up to $100, not quite $200. They're not that generous. Very generous, but not quite $200. Anyway, sign up for Underdog using code UNDROPPABLE. And remember, Underdog's the easiest way to play fantasy football, so go check it out, baby. All right, so before we get into the draft talk, let's go ahead and talk about the most recent news, which is the Steelers declining fifth-year option for first-round running back Najee Harris. So I have a few thoughts on this. One, am I that surprised? Not really. The way the whole NFL landscape is going, you see less and less running backs getting a second contract. It's such like a volatile, high-risk position that you kind of want to just ride them out the first 3 to 4 years and let them go. That seems to be generally where that cliff might start. You might have some anomalies like Derrick Henry, Adrian Peterson, people who last 8, 10, Frank Gore, 12, even longer than that. Those are few and far between. Typically, running back shelf life, at least at their peak, is going to be that 3 to 4 year span. And then after that, they might be more of a platoon piece. So I'm not super surprised. He wasn't very expensive. I believe picking up his fifth-year option would have cost him about $6.8 or $6.9 million. So that part was a little shocking that they didn't pick up that fifth-year option for that price. I think part of it, too, with a new offensive coordinator, whole new offensive scheme, they might want to see how he fits, some of those run designs before they try to commit to him for the future. This doesn't mean that he won't necessarily be back. But it does pretty much determine that as of right now, after the 2024 season, He will be a free agent, so he will have the chance to test the market. Some team might pay him handsomely. We saw a few running backs this past offseason. Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. There's one more, Joe Mixon. They got multi-year deals with new teams. So there will be a market for Najee Harris if he does not reach a deal with the Steelers. But just to speak on that a little bit. So I got my Feed Naj shirt on. So I'm going to try to be as unbiased as I can. I do really like Najee Harris. I like what he brings to the table. I think he's physical. But I am a realist to the situation. I know that running back is generally being devalued by the NFL as a whole. But, while, running back is probably the most replaceable position in the NFL if you just look league-wide, I don't think you can necessarily say his role to the Steelers the last 3 years is super replaceable. They've asked him to do a lot. He shoulders the workload. He gets a lot of touches. I think that first year he led the NFL in touches. So they've asked him to shoulder a lot of their offensive carries, even with Jaylen Warren in the backfield as well, who he was splitting time with last year. He's an absolute workhorse. He's not missed a game yet in his NFL career. He's the only player in the NFL to rush for 1,000 yards the last 3 seasons. Now, everything I see, oh, that's not that impressive. It's actually only 58 rushing yards a game, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, well, no one else has done it. Literally no one else. So that's got to speak volumes to some degree, right? If you're telling me that it's so easy to do what he's done and it's so replaceable, find me another running back who's ran for 1,000 yards in 3 straight seasons. You literally can't do it. The list ends with him. So while I do agree that the position is fairly replaceable, it's going to be hard to replace his volume without an immediate succession plan. Jaylen Warren, whom I love, he's a very good player. I do think there is a little bit of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard to their situation. I think a lot of fans, I see on Twitter just clamoring, oh, Warren's way better. He should be the lead back, this and that. I don't know that Jaylen Warren is the man to take 25 to 30 touches a game. I feel like he might be best and served in his current role, getting that 12 to 15 touch where he's fresh, more explosive. He's a good complement to a big workhorse back like Najee Harris. I think they work really well together, which was the highlight of their offense last year was the two of them in the running game, especially down the stretch. So little surprised they're willing, to divide that. But again, with the new offensive coordinator, they probably want to see how he works into those run schemes and see if they like what they see, before they commit money to him long term. But just an interesting topic in general. The running back position, as I said, has been kind of being devalued as the years go on. But I do think Najee's role in Pittsburgh, he's been asked to do a lot. And it's going to be interesting if they don't bring him back after the 2024 season to see who they bring in to help kind of divvy that workload that him and Warren are currently sharing. So, again, shout out my man Naj. Love watching him play. Fun, physical player, nasty, stiff arm. So, I hope to see him continue at least after 2024, maybe for another year or two with the Steelers. So it's going to be sad to see him go if they do not extend him. Now, enough with the running back situation. We're going to hop into the draft. So we're about almost 2 weeks here past the draft. And so let's back it up a little bit. So before the draft, all the noise, all the hype was saying, Graham Barton was kind of rising to the top of, it seemed like most Pittsburgh sports media analysts were saying, sources are saying it's going to be Barton if he's there. They view him as a generational, I think was the word, generational talent of a center prospect. He started getting a lot of hype too from the national media as well. I know Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks, they were super high on him as well. So he was kind of the name everyone had their eye on. And, some people were saying maybe Frazier, Powers Johnson, but, centers traditionally do not get a ton of first-round capital. So I honestly had no clue what they were going to do. I was hoping for offensive line. But the player they ended up selecting, I had written off because I was like, all right, there's no shot this guy's going to be there. Now, about pick 16, 17 mark, I think it was right before the Bengals were on the clock, is where I looked at the board and I was like, So Troy Fautanu is there. Graham Barton's there. Both cornerbacks were there, who some people had the Steelers mock taking either Quinyon Mitchell or Terron Arnold from Alabama. Also, Brian Thomas was still there, who was also mocked in a few situations. So we're looking at 3 picks out from the Steelers, and all 5 of those dudes are still on the board. I was shocked. I don't know. I was texting actually one of my high school buddies. I don't even know if he'll listen to this, but if you do, shout out Harks. Because we had been talking the day prior to the draft, and he said, I would really like Fautanu. I think he's a stud. He plays multiple positions, et cetera, et cetera. So we're up on the Bengals pick. They take Amarius Mims, tackle from Georgia. And I text him. I said, hey, look at the board. He goes, dude, I know. I'm ecstatic right now. So pick 20 comes on the clock. They have their choice of either corner they want, Graham Barton or Troy Fautanu. Many of which thought would have gone in the top 13, 15. Some people had him ranked in the top 10. But they select him. And I think the biggest thing about him is his athleticism for his size. So he's 6'4", 317 pounds, primarily played left tackle all of his last year at Washington. However, he has that positional flexibility to play all across the line. And my favorite thing about him is if you watch Washington play, if you watch them at all last year. So, Michael Penix, Heisman candidate, first-round pick, huge arm, fun, exciting. Love watching him throw lasers all over the field. You had Rome Odunze, another first-round pick, and you had Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan, second and third-round picks as well. And if you go back and you put on their offensive tape, I would argue with you that Troy Fautanu almost stood off as much as those 4 guys I just mentioned. It seemed like he's making highlight reel blocks. He's out in front of the play. He's run blocking people past the whistle. There was some crazy stat. I think he allowed 2 or 3 sacks his entire college career. I mean, he's an absolute stud. I could not believe he was there at 20. I think he's going to fit really nicely as a pair with Broderick. Now, if you're talking left tackle versus right tackle, I'm not sure what they're going to do there. I don't know if they want to keep Broderick on the right since he played there a lot last year and keep Troy on the left. They interviewed Troy shortly after he arrived in Pittsburgh. He said he's comfortable anywhere, left or right. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But again, not going to be mad that they have 2 high-quality first-round tackles on the roster, a position that they've been struggling to fill for a while now. So super happy about that first pick. I think it definitely goes with their new offensive philosophy with Arthur Smith, wanting to run the ball, wanting to have a mauling offensive line. And that kind of parlays right into their second-round pick at pick 51, selecting Zach Frazier, center out of West Virginia. You heard the names Powers, Johnson, Barton, and Frazier is pretty much the consensus top 3 centers in this draft. I know the Steelers had Graham Barton, I believe, is their favorite center, but spoke very highly of Zach Frazier as well. I know the Steelers offensive line coach actually said he liked Zach Frazier the best. This is a 3-year starter coming out of West Virginia. They played Penn State, actually, who had a top 5 defense in the country. First game of the season last year. And if anyone watched that game, the whole time the announcers were just raving about Zach Frazier, 3-year starter, moving people off the line of scrimmage. The dude's just a baller. He's a high school wrestler, state champ, just has that grit, that toughness that fits with the Steelers mentality. Center, has been a real big position of need for them ever since Marquise Pouncey retired. Last year, they had Mason Cole plugged in for the past 2 seasons. And, it was tough. He got beat on a good bit of running plays, especially near the goal line. You watch some of those games. Cardinals game really sticks out in particular. They got stuffed first and goal from inside the 5, and Mason Cole, he's losing a lot of ground on those plays. And those are those hidden yards that, you might not think matter. You lose yardage on first down. It's like, all right, we still got 2 more cracks from the 5, but being able to move the line of scrimmage is so valuable in the run game. And, that's what Zach Frazier does. He's a little bit shorter. He's about 6'2.5", 310, but he uses his leverage well. He's super strong, plays with good pad level. Again, I think it's just a slam dunk of a pick. Really putting an emphasis on the trenches, taking both 2 highly rated offensive line prospects in the first 2 rounds to pair with James Daniels, Broderick Jones, first-round pick from last year, and Isaac Seumalo. That's how you flip a very poor offensive line from 2020, 2021 to an arguably top half of the league one granted with two rookies, but two highly renowned rookies. I think they're going to plug and play right away, and I'm excited to watch them mesh. I can't wait, honestly. I want to see what the run game looks like with Arthur Smith and a newly revamped offensive line. Now, heading into the third round here, there's still definitely some positions of need. We know they're thin at corner, receiver as well with the Deontay Johnson trade, and off-ball linebacker as well, especially with the Cole Holcomb injury last year. Don't know how he's going to come back from that. So third round, they had a few routes they could go. Roman Wilson, wide receiver from Michigan, ends up falling to them. And, I saw something that said they were considering him at pick 51. So the fact that they got him at 84, I believe it was, is awesome from a value standpoint. Really solid player, 6 foot, 185 pounds, and he has legitimate speed. If you turn on the college football play, if you watch them play Alabama, he took about a 4-yard drag pass about 40 yards to the house, and that's running past Alabama's secondary, and a lot of those guys heard their names called the past 2 weeks ago as well. He can absolutely fly. His speed is no joke. I also love how he's willing to mix it up in the run game and block and throw his weight around. He's not the biggest guy, but he's tough. He's physical. He blocks. He'll break tackles after the catch. I think he's a really good scheme fit in Pittsburgh, and he's a good complement to George Pickens. He's a little faster, shiftier, can play a little bit more inside, where George Pickens is more of your prototypical X, go ball, some dig routes, which we like to see because people knock him a little bit that he only runs down the field. But I think he's a good complement to George, and I love the pick. But now we're going to get to my favorite pick in the entire draft, and that is my boy Peyton Wilson, linebacker out of NC State. I was a linebacker in college, I think I mentioned before, so perhaps I'm a little bit biased. However, the only reason this man was there is because he had a few medical concerns coming into the combine. Definitely, if you watch his tape, he's absolutely a first-round talent. He's 6'4", almost 240 pounds. He ran a 4.48, and he was clocked at over 22 miles an hour on the field this year. Now, you want to talk about someone who stands out on film. You go turn on any NC State game. This guy is all over the field. One of my favorite plays, I think it was against Virginia Tech. Not positive. So he blitzes off the far side of the line of scrimmage. The run is away from him. He loops all the way around, chases the running back all the way down, propels himself about 4 yards through the air and tackles him short of the sticks, immediately just gets up and starts talking trash. Like, you talk about someone who wants the smoke and wants every bit of contact he gets, that's Peyton Wilson. He, for lack of a better term, you guys probably heard this before, someone who plays with their hair on fire. That describes him to a T. He is an absolute menace on the football field. Steelers doctors gave him the green light. They felt comfortable, weren't too concerned with the knee issue. And they get an absolute steal at pick 98, someone who's going to be an absolute menace for them. Pairing him with the Landon Roberts, Patrick Queen, who they just signed from the Ravens in free agency. Hopefully Cole Holcomb comes back too and can be a rotational piece after his gruesome injury last year. But, wow, I'm excited to watch him play. He picked kind of a beat number, 41, but, maybe he'll make his mark as a rookie and he'll get to change that. But that was my personal favorite pick of the draft. I can't wait to watch him play and fly around, make some tackles for loss because, he was just super, super productive at NC State. He can cover as well. He's fast, sideline to sideline. They have some serious speed now with him and Patrick Queen in the middle of that defense, and I can't wait to see how he fits in. So great pick. Super excited there. Okay, let's continue. So going into the fourth round, this pick I was a little shocked by. I feel like it might be more of a preparing for the future move because I do not believe James Daniels is under contract for 2025, and I'm not sure Sam Allo is either. So they take guard Mason McCormick out of South Dakota State FCS school. Shout out FCS, baby. 6'4", 309, I believe it was. Started, I think, north of 50 games there. And you want to see someone get after it in the run game, there's another guy for you right there. South Dakota State, for those of you who aren't super familiar with FCS football, they've been an absolute wagon of a team the last 3 or 4 years. I believe they won the national championship last year. And their running back also got drafted by the Jets, and they were just a ground and pound team, and he was a big reason why. Again, he's a people mover. He gets out in space. He climbs to the second level well. He plays with just a good physicality and tenaciousness that you like to see out of an offensive lineman. So I don't believe he will start this year, but he could be a good kind of developmental piece. And, if he's able to progress a lot his rookie year, if they like what they see, they might feel comfortable, not paying James Daniels, sliding in McCormick to right guard, and then using that money they save from Daniels elsewhere for some others positions of need. But so that's the only pick that I wasn't super stoked on. I kind of get the idea of maybe just planning for the future a little bit. There are some other more pressing needs in my mind. I thought they should have addressed corner a little bit earlier, as well as interior defensive line. They honestly could have even double dipped at receiver, because right now they still don't have like a true wide receiver 2 or 3. It's Roman Wilson, George Pickens, and then Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins, right? So I thought they could have double dipped at receiver there. There's still some good ones on the board, but I like what Omar Khan's done. I'm going to believe in him and trust that he knows best. And so we're rocking with it. Mason McCormick, baby. We'll see what he got. Now, after him, we got 2 more picks here. Next pick, I think they were both 6th-round picks. Logan Lee, defensive tackle from Iowa. Now, this is just a classic scheme fit for the Steelers' 3-4 defense. He's 6'5", 290 pounds, long arms, has some decent production in the backfield. I think 8 or 9 TFLs in 2023, 3 sacks. But he's just your prototypical long 3-4 defensive end to keep offensive linemen off of those fast linebackers that we were just talking about. If you watch him play, he's big, physical, strong. He really reminds me of some of those earlier 2000s defenses that the Steelers had with Brett Kiesel and Aaron Smith. Very similar body type and build to both of those guys. And, they were fantastic at eating up blocks and just letting Larry Foote and James Ferrier run free to make tackles. So I think for a shot in the 6th round, it's not a bad pick. They do need some defensive line help. Cam Hayward's getting older. Larry Ogunjobi, I believe, is 30 now. He has a little bit of an injury history. Keanu Benton was an absolute smash of a pick last year. Then after those 3, it's more of just rotational pieces like Montravius Adams, Isaiah Loudermilk, who they took in the 5th round out of Wisconsin a couple years ago. Similar build to Logan Lee. So he's a good, I think, rotational piece to add, and I think he could solidify a role because I think what he does well fits into the Steelers' base defense. So I love taking a shot on someone like that, especially at a position of need. So, we'll see if he makes the team, see if he gets some rotational snaps to spell Cam Hayward as he gets up there in age. And, I definitely don't hate it. I think his build is a good scheme fit, as I mentioned. So in the 6th round, you're kind of just thrown at a dartboard, so maybe someone will land and someone will hit, and let's hope Logan Lee is the man for the job. Getting to the final pick here, we got Ryan Watts, defensive back out of the University of Texas. Started his career at Ohio State, I believe. Wasn't getting much playing time, so he transferred to Texas. The transfer portal's crazy now. It's hard to keep track on these things, but finishes his career at Texas. Not super productive in 2023. I do not believe he had an interception. He had about 30 tackles or so, 3 or 4 passes defended. So not much from a raw stats point of view. What I would like to point out with Ryan Watts is his build. So he measured in at 6'3", 208 pounds, which is absolutely huge for a corner. Now, why am I pointing this out? So Ryan Watts, who they've drafted, they have Corey Trice, who they drafted in the 7th round out of Purdue last year. He is also 6'3", 200 pounds. Joey Porter Jr., who they took in the 2nd round last year, 6'2.5", close to 200 pounds. And Darius Rush, kind of a project cornerback, they, I believe, got from the they got from the Chiefs practice squad last year. Also north of 6'2", about 200 pounds. So there's clearly a build that they're targeting in the secondary. They want big physical guys, which is something they haven't really had in the past. So I'm not sure exactly why they're making this switch to, the taller, lankier corners. Maybe they're doing that just to play a little bit more physical and aggressive near the line, knowing they have now better cover linebackers and 2 more of ball hawking safeties back there in KZ and Fitzpatrick. So it's definitely, and that's was my biggest takeaway about the Ryan Watts pick was his size. I think they're really trying to build a big physical cornerback room, and they're trying to play a specific brand of defense doing so. So they are pretty thin at corner. They lost Levi Wallace, they lost James Pierre, Patrick Peterson. So there's three and no, just those three. Yeah. So they lost three cornerbacks from last year. So they're going to have to replace them with someone. And, we'll see. I'm excited to see what happens there. They did add Dante Jackson as well in the Deontay Johnson trade. My guess is they must be really high on him if they waited till the 6th round to add some corner help. But, we'll see. They kind of had too many needs to address all in one draft. So I imagine that they will probably maybe spend a little money, maybe make a trade, sign another free agent. There's still some names out there on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So I'm going to be curious to see what they do here before the season starts. But to recap, I thought they crushed the draft. Love the fact that they went heavy O-line. Love the fact that they added a speedy playmaker for Russell Wilson, someone who's also willing to block and just play that, the hard-nosed style of football that, the Steelers want to play now with Arthur Smith in the building. And I love the fact that they took a shot on Peyton Wilson in the 3rd round. I think truly if he stays healthy, he's going to be an absolute difference maker. Bookmark this now. What's the date? May 7th. May 7th, Steelers Uncovered podcast. Peyton Wilson stays healthy. He will absolutely pop on film. I can't wait to watch him play. So, great draft. Super excited. It's getting me pumped up for the season already. Can't believe I have to wait another 4 months, but here we are. It was good to make another show. It had been far too long. I'm glad that we finally got to get some content out to you guys. Shout out BZ, unable to make it tonight, but we'll be back in the lab soon. We'll get some more content back out to you guys, and thank you for listening. Again, super stoked right now. Draft season just finished, and I can't wait for my team, the Steelers, start playing games. And make sure you go subscribe. Click that button at the bottom at the Undroppables Network, baby. Till next time, here we go, Steelers, baby.